But yeah, fun. Like Rob, he actually listens to our show.
I'm always surprised to hear anybody say
Do other
that.
people tell you that?
I've only had one person say that they listen to it regularly, and that's the only one.
Just who? Tasia?
Yeah. So she's the only one I've heard that listens.
Okay. Pop. I'm gonna get into it a little Joe Rogan style.
Oh boy, he's in trouble, huh?
What did he do?
He all these medical practitioners are getting after Spotify for the fact that he's just spouting complete nonsense all the time.
He is spouting nonsense.
And then he had some guy that came on and started talking about like mass psychosis or something like that. This idea that all of these people are actually following blindly guidance about COVID vaccines, and that's the only way to explain why the people that are pro-vaccines are so crazy about it. They're under mass psychosis, similar apparently to what happened in the 30s with the rise of Adolf in Germany.
Man, oh man,
that parallel is
it just really beat that
it's a
trope.
bottomless well.
And it's, I just don't understand that. That's sort of like people using literally or ironic when it isn't. Yeah. It's just like nothing really quite measures up.
Here's a word that drives me crazy lately. Phrase. I think it would be beneficial. I hear that so often.
Right.
It's driving me bonkers.
As opposed to what? What's the alternative? Here on the hotline. With Kurt Huffman and Leather Stores.
It would be beneficial. First of all, just the passive voice usually drives me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But you could say much more specific, like there are advantages to, it would be beneficial.
So is that some way of you put out a statement and then just sort of soften its presentation?
Oh, you kind of have an idea and then kind of say, I think this would be beneficial to what we're doing. And it's just like, okay, I assume if you're proposing an idea.
So you're saying it's actionable. Impactful?
Well, it's just like, well, of course it should benefit. Otherwise, it's a terrible idea.
So it's just a wasted phrase.
It's a way of saying, I think this is a good idea, but it sounds
hedging.
Right. It sounds more like you've put a tiny bit of thought to why the benefits. But it's just like, okay, but it's a lead-in. It's like, how?
Right.
Tell me. I think this would address.
There is a lot of soft stepping, I think, that happens increasingly linguistically as people, I think, try to make sure that they don't come across too aggressively or too pointedly, too privileged.
Yeah, and there's lots of words that kind of are misused because people maybe don't have a great grasp of the language. So I think that is kind of a way of smartening up phrases.
Right. People just grab onto things that they think they know what they mean.
Yeah. And I had some great partners for a little while, long time ago, that always would misuse words, like big words, but always would misuse them. And then that puts you in a pickle, right? Because you don't want to be
correcting them.
The a-hole. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like, actually, that's not what the word means.
I think my favorite experience in that kind of mistaken word use was one of my brothers-in-law who was a après-ski performer, and he had something called a shot ski. You know what a shot ski is, right? Shot glasses glued to a ski.
By the way, the OLCC does not allow that in bars.
They don't allow the shot ski. Would they allow the shot hockey stick?
No.
Okay. In any event, it's a stick with 5 shot glasses on it, so 5 people drink it. It's very, opera. Everyone's partying and drinking Jaeger. Right. And so he would introduce the shot ski as the penultimate drinking experience.
Oh. So what came after that?
See, that's the thing.
It's the thing you do.
He's like, this is the second best. I'm like, dude, come on.
Well, it's not really the second best. This is the, this is what we do before we do the ultimate thing.
Before we do the best thing or the last thing, we're going to do this thing.
So hold on to your hats.
I think the idea, okay, All right. Ultimate is awesome, but if you modify it, it's got to be more awesome, right?
That's right. Oh man.
Needless to say, I did not correct that.
Yeah.
Because
because you were excited, thinking, man, if this is the penultimate, what's
then
the ultimate?
what's next?
Like a 30
There's gonna be
shot
bears on unicycles and flames.
Oh man. And of course, Chaos Presumed.
Chaos Presumed may also rank right up there as one of my favorite malapropes. Although I think there's wonderful ways of doing that. I mean, I think all families have words that were maybe mispronounced or missaid, reapplied to different things, like the way Rye said exciting. I'm exciting about that.
Yeah.
And we continue to say that. When I was a kid, I said soup case. So soup case became kind of shorthand.
Right.
And, my mom, who insists on things being both enthusiastic and consistent at a high level, if you don't say at least instead of at least, you will get corrected.
Oh, she's really adopted.
Yeah,
adopted.
there are things that you just have to say.
Right.
But I agree with you. Sometimes you're talking to someone and they pull out a supposedly, or for all intensive purposes, and you want to, I don't know what you do there.
Yeah, it's a fine line these days because you don't want to be that guy.
But I think
You don't want to seem all educated.
No, but at the same time, I love language, and I try to be pretty careful with it. I think sometimes I overstep and make things a little too tangly, but I do think that knowing the difference between words and the subtlety and the way to express yourself clearly and carefully is an art that we are losing.
Yes, and I will say that when I moved back from France, I had a lot of trouble because I was just kind of mashing up languages.
Right.
So I would probably, I was probably embarrassing because I was just trying to probably use a French word but then say it in English.
Well, and then you would also kind of translate back to English, like you would always say clients.
Right.
In the restaurant industry, and I was tickled by that, but that's because that was your French back to English.
Right. Yeah, and then you kind of start moving, modifiers around because of just how Latin languages do that. The oops. But so your time is coming to an end.
I am in my last.
I'm really
shifts.
anxious to get to this story. By the way,
I'm in my last 2 shifts at Fatback Kitchen. Things are moving along. That is the commissary for Lardo and Grassa. And when I got there, it was a little rough. They had just had a massive COVID outbreak. Remember, we had Rick on. He was talking about that, and I started working with him shortly afterwards. And the management there wasn't ideal, but it's really tightened up.
Yeah.
Like in the entire time that I've been there, I'm amazed at how much smoother and better everything and cleaner everything is. I will say, however, that the area in which Fatback Kitchen resides is not cleaner. It is worse. And I don't know, do you call that Old Town? It's like 7th and Cooch.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because the Pearl really doesn't officially start until past the park blocks.
Right.
So you guys are right there.
We're on the park blocks where actually 2 trees have just fallen down in the last week. Like literally, poof, unearthed and fell onto buildings.
Like oaks, old oaks?
Yeah, huge ones.
Yeah.
There are a ton of tents down there, a lot of displaced people, a whole bunch of kookiness. I was standing outside a few weeks ago and talking to a couple cooks. This woman comes up and asks me politely if I had $20 that I would like to give her for the privilege of eating her ass. She said, would you like to eat my ass for $20? And partly because I was engaged in conversation and partly because I was at work, I declined.
Oh, thank God there were those 2 things happening.
But, she was a motivated salesperson, and the next thing I know, she was displaying her wares.
Oh.
And had pulled her pants down and was spreading her bottom and showing the offer, kind of
The
sweeten
opportunity.
the pot. And regardless, I declined again. But that's the first time that has ever happened to me. I was shocked, and it's the first time I've ever seen anybody smoking crack. It's the first time I've felt like kind of very unsafe in my own city.
Right.
These people come by and they, one eyeball at you, and they're kind of shaking a little bit. You got a cigarette? Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think that's an offer? I mean, are there takers for that offer?
For the ass eating?
Yeah.
It takes all kinds. I think that's what's great about the human stew is that there's going to be somebody out there who's into it. That
and
was
actually
not me.
willing to come out of pocket $20.
Yeah, and I imagine you could have negotiated that.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, that's a part of the body that really benefits from a good washing.
Man, oh man, we're talking about sanitation,
Right.
But let's segue from that into just talking about what a bummer Portland downtown. I mean, what a butthole that is for doing business. It's been very difficult for food operators, certainly in that area, but in concentric circles on the west side in downtown Portland to stay open.
Yeah, in fact, right before we came here, we're talking with our mutual friend Rob Slattery, who has a very cool company called Build Stable.
Nice
plug. And he was saying about his buddy who moved here from Charleston. I don't believe I've met him, but a great chef. He worked at Bullard, and I love Jen Quist, who runs Bullard, formerly where Doug Adams worked. And they, we were told, laid off yesterday 80% of their staff.
Yeah,
that's amazing, and I think it's definitely not a testimony to the quality of the product or the quality of the space.
Right.
Because I like that space a lot,
Yeah.
And when they opened, I loved the fact that they had a flight of picklebacks that you could have. They had an Aquavit pickleback that I thought was remarkable. In any case, it's just downtown.
Yeah.
And also this week we announced that we're permanently closing or not reopening Bistro Agnes.
Right.
Which on a personal note is that's 12 years. I was there in some capacity.
In that space, yeah.
Yeah. Our first official chef's stable office was a 250 square foot office.
I remember.
Where I met Jessica Silverman, who was working at the time at P.F. Chang's as a waitress, and she came in as an unpaid intern. I don't know that we do those much anymore these days.
You sure don't.
And so we were in this teeny little office. It's just me, Jessica, Victoria, my dog.
I remember.
And so that was 12, and that at that time we were opening Gruner in, I want to say December of 09. No, December of 10. And so, yeah, 12 years.
Well, that was a hot corner. That was where Tasty and Alder was.
Yep.
And then Gruner into Bistro Agnes. I mean, that was a luminary spot. And I think a lot of people felt was going to be, that corridor was just going to explode.
I thought it was the best, one of the best neighborhoods in Portland, because if you go down Alder, right, you had all those hotels that were building. So Doug and Jen had Bullard. Across the street, Rosa was run by Vitaly Palate.
Yep.
Then you go up, Jose Chesa had that brand new Hyatt where he was going to be doing a restaurant.
Right.
And by the way, all
gone. Right. I was just going to say, what unites the
and
three of those
then
people?
Multnomah Whiskey Library, which is still chugging along.
I get it.
Shalom Y'all. And then, Tasty and Alder, the busiest restaurant per square foot.
And now you've got Peter Cho in that space.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm not going to talk about his business. I don't know anything about it, but I do know that on many nights you could shoot a cannon through the big streets in downtown Portland and not hit anything.
In that area, yes, it is unbelievable. And then juxtaposed against how empty, specifically the water to the freeway, right? I would say from probably like if you go all the way down to like at Lovejoy thing, you go to Northwest where there are lots of great restaurants, around Slabtown.
Right.
That area is busy. But if you go up further, let's guess Everett, Flanders, Everett, all the way into the west side, river to the freeway, it is a dead zone.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to correspond exactly where the kind of the unrest was. So that's not an accident.
Right.
But yeah, that area is super depressing and super empty at nighttime. That's the thing that blows my mind. But I think it is the number one reason for it is that there are no tourists.
Yeah.
And that was tourist mega center for the last 10 to 12 years.
Right. And so we need an event. We need something to roll this along in a positive way, because
Right.
I don't know that there is going to be this sort of rising tide that's going to solve all of these problems in a speedy fashion. And it does strike me that some of these problems are becoming quite pressing.
Yeah.
We're watching restaurant, and I don't mean to just look at it from a restaurant point of view, but I suppose because that's ostensibly the nature of our show, that's the way we should do it. I went out the other night, and it wasn't easy. Like it's not super fun to go out. There's a lot of protocol. There's a certain amount of discomfort in being around other people. Unfortunately, there's just this growing kind of there's other microbes around. And the meal was fine, and it was great. The environment wasn't super duper because there weren't a lot of people out.
Right.
And then we ended up getting not one but two hairs in a breaded pork chop. And I could see the open kitchen. One of the guys has got his hair kind of in a haphazard bun.
Right.
So I kind of drawing a straight line. And because we were the last table, and because there weren't many people in the restaurant, we could see them plating our food.
Right.
And like not just tasting it, but kind of eating it.
Right.
As they're finishing stuff up. And so as a restaurant person, I wanted to pay the bill, pay the tip, and then say something. By the time I had gotten to that point, the manager had bounced, and the guy who was looking after us was kind of derpy and mouth breathy and didn't really care, and I just kind of threw my hands up because I don't want to shit on the business, but I also feel like good thing it happened to a restaurant person instead of
A guest.
a real guest, because come on.
Well, that is one of the hard parts about the lack of engagement, staff engagement, to me is the sign of kind of a death spiral of a restaurant. And we've had, many of them. We failed more than anybody in this town by far, like if you do the count.
Right.
So I'm very familiar with the signs and very familiar with watching it and trying so hard to keep staff engaged and blah, blah, blah. But when the malaise takes over and there's just kind of that scent of doom,
Mm-hmm.
that's hard, especially for places that are hyped up initially to kind of be the place.
Right.
The staff will often feel deceived or let down.
If it doesn't meet expectations.
Yeah, because a lot of people, especially front of house people, will leave quite lucrative positions elsewhere to take like the next big thing.
Right.
And if the next big thing doesn't pan out, it's pretty frustrating. You've kind of put your lot in with what you think is going to be a big paycheck, and it's not. And then also, in the kitchen side, if there's not that recognition for what you're doing, or if the chef isn't as engaged as they might be,
Right.
then you start getting sloppy, and you start letting hair get into food, and that's a good sign. I mean, the hair and food thing is a big one.
Oh.
You're just not paying attention, and but then I also empathize with what you're saying, because as a restaurant person, often your instinct is to try to say something, but that is so loaded.
Well, we have gone down this road before.
Yes.
You and I. I mean, I remember we both had experiences at a hot restaurant some years ago, and both of our experiences were unpleasant to the point of on my date actually threw up.
Yeah.
And I remember being real gutsy for a good day, day and a half.
Yeah, I would say that it was probably the worst meal I've had in the period from when it happened to now. So that's probably quite a few years.
Right.
We clearly don't want to say who we're
In
talking
any
about.
event, you and I, being the noble restaurateur professionals that we are, crafted sort of this idea to reach out. And
because it was a person that we really liked.
yes.
And I think part of our disappointment was that we were excited to be there and celebrate kind of this new thing, and it felt
You want it.
Yeah,
You're
you
like,
want-
I want your food to be delicious. There are no barriers here to me enjoying this, save this shitty ass food.
Yeah, and it was genuinely unbalanced, dry, disappointing, and I felt excited because just previously I had eaten in another city the exact same style of cuisine, which I didn't expect to like very much. It was kind of like going to Portland 8 years ago, once Pok Pok had already been established, but then some of the locals were already saying, oh, it's not that good.
Yeah, right.
Right? But you go there as somebody from out of town, and you're like, whoa, that is awesome.
There are still a couple dishes that Andy did that just bounce around in my brain every once in a while, and even kind of taste memories. And that doesn't happen a lot.
Oh man, that catfish dish he used to do.
The sugo, the ground catfish.
No, I'm talking about the chunks of catfish that he used to do on the that had like a pineapple sauce that would go on top of it. God, and I used to have that whole menu memorized.
Well, he was so unapologetic too with the shitty fish, like the catfish and the
Yeah.
frozen. I was like, "Are you getting like organic, humane Cornish hens?" He's
Tilapia.
like, "I'm getting Cornish hens, as many as I can buy
Right.
in cases and boxes and trucks."
Well, he got it from that one nice that California. What's the name of it? It's like a woman's name.
Mary.
Mary's.
Yeah.
So those are okay.
Yeah, they were.
And but in any case, the food that we were both talking about was so bad, and everybody was so disappointed.
We were all set up for an
that
intervention.
I left in a panic for the chef because I thought there's so much goodwill and so much excitement for this, and it is so bad that
This is going
the
to be
first time
spectacular.
ever, for the first time ever, I felt like we should reach out, or I felt like I should reach out, and then you had a
Did you
similar
think that it
experience.
would be beneficial? Yeah.
I thought that it was a nice thing to do to try to course correct because I had seen our own places start
Would you
on a wrong
have
foot.
appreciated that as an owner operator?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, I do remember giving feedback at another place, and so a guy named.
Hold on a minute. Should we stay focused?
Well, I can say that the only other time I provided like actual feedback was when I went to it was the guys that own Matador, and one of the guy I know is a guy named Zach Malang, who is a wonderful guy, and they opened this barbecue concept down on 23rd, like Southland or South something or other.
Okay.
It's right next to Matador, and it's a big barbecue place. They have the same smoker that we have over at the commissary, and I went and ate, and it was genuinely terrible. And I texted him. I was like, "Do you want my feedback?" And he said, "Sure." And so I just wrote down.
It sucked, bro. It
Yeah,
sucked.
but I mean, I just wrote down, just said, these are actually really bad, but I think that there's opportunities maybe to do other stuff. And the chef was that received the feedback was so, thought I was such a pretentious dickhead for giving the feedback. And then probably 4 months later, they had one of the worst reviews I've ever seen published. I think it was Michael Russell that wrote it, about how absolutely horrible the food was there.
Right.
And Zach got a hold of me. He's like, "Dude, it's like, you were right. Worst review ever." And he's like, "I'm driving down now to help fix this." And I was like, so then I felt vindicated. Right. But
not helpful, nevertheless.
no, it didn't help. And how, I don't know what I was basically the only thing to say is the guy you have doing this doesn't know what he's doing. Right. It's just bad. And
well, I think I texted our friend, and just I basically said I've got some feedback, and let's get together, and that's I think as far as it went.
Yeah, and thank God, because we had truly awful meals.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just there wasn't a single thing that was good, and in fact, gross.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
but somebody fixed it up.
But then, well, we don't know because we haven't been back.
Right.
But the huge irony, of course, is that within a couple months of us kind of really wrenching our guts about how do we engage, is there a nice way to tell the chef that we had terrible meals and here are things that we just think are low-hanging fruit to address, because the service was fantastic.
I know. I remember you're like, I'm working on an email.
And then like the first restaurant of the year stuff comes out, and boom, front and center in everybody's list. And I think ends up being restaurant of the year at some point.
And that means you and I don't know a goddamn
and then gets
thing.
picked up by like a national publication for being one of the best in America.
Well,
and we're like, whoo,
dodged a bullet.
We dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
Like the ultimate.
Yeah, and in fact, when you think about that, what is the reaction? What is the better outcome? That you say something, they do nothing, and you're vindicated,
right.
Or that you not say something?
Right.
I mean, are you vindicated in that outcome as well for not saying something?
Yeah, I just know I felt a huge relief for not having said anything because clearly, well, either it was fixed and it was a shared opinion, in which case it would probably be like, oh yeah, I saw the same things. Thanks for reaching out.
Right.
Or it turns out that people love food that we think is disgusting.
We don't care for, and that's probably closer to the truth.
It may be. So it was a dodged bullet as far as I was concerned. So it's like, man, oh man, thank God. I didn't say anything.
All right, I'm still grinning and proud and hearing people write about having Rye on our show last week. And I thought that was terrific fun. Hopefully we can get Charlotte on here sometime soon.
Rye's your son, for those who didn't listen.
Oh, right. That's right. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up is because he was going to help us this afternoon move some weights. We're going to move some weights that you're getting for free.
Yeah.
And you and I both can't resist free shit.
Cannot
resist it. Regardless.
Yeah.
We'll find a use for it. But Rye was going to help us. And he's not, because he went for an overnight at Pacific University with the football team. Not the Franklin football team. He went as a guest of the program.
Huh.
So I was having all these kind of like 80s party montages in my head, but I'm pretty sure that's not went down.
He's like the most level-headed 18-year-old around.
He'll do a little. I know he's dipped his feet in the pool, but I think he's quite, his family tree is rich with people who are not good with substances, including his father. So I think he is aware of that. But
he's cautious.
He likes to. He'll have a beer or two every once in a while.
You think?
I was really upset. His first beer was like a Bud Light Lime.
Well, but you get it, right? What was the first drink you had?
I don't know, probably something we stole. Graveyard we made off the top of a booze bottle.
First thing I had, I think, was a wine cooler.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what alcohol tasted like, so I didn't want actually to taste alcohol.
Right.
I wanted to taste.
They
like
did a pretty
lemonade.
good job of obscuring that.
Yeah. What was it? What wine coolers were they?
There was Bartles.
Bartles
and
and James. There
yeah.
we go. I definitely had a Bartles, and funny little stubby bottles, weren't they? My memory.
Yeah, and then they I think they also had larger format containers.
Oh yeah, I definitely and I didn't. Yeah, it was nice because they also weren't carbonated. I'm not a big carbonated.
I know
drinker.
that. I know that.
So that was.
So well, I'm gonna see if I can get the report from him. Well,
oh man,
we're gonna hope for girls on shoulders and however the rest of that lyric goes.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's got to be fun. I mean, I didn't go to a school where there's a lot of fans of athletes, so I probably missed out on that. I did get to see that in France though, and there were definitely some crazy crazy after parties in France.
Oh,
Holy mackerel.
Rye was talking about the visit, and I was giving him a hard time about, they're going
Right.
to have gals lined up and ready and show you around. And just imagining, like, back in the day, like Miami.
Right.
Can you imagine the nuttiness that went on
Oh,
in Miami? And Charlotte's like, yeah, they probably hired people to get those guys. I'm like, I think there were probably some Miami students who were eager to help out.
right.
Some football enthusiasts.
Yeah, and we don't even live in that world, right? So, but you go to a big state school, and these guys they're gods on campus.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about us. Like when we were at Wilson, like we revered like the cheerleaders. They were like
Right. Or
remember,
Keith Smith, just like,
remember Susie Hutchison? Oh my God, she was a senior when we were freshmen, and we grew up with the Hutchisons, right? Ami was in our class, and Lindsay was in my sister's class, and we go.
Lindsay's an actor, and she used to be married, or maybe still is, to
Used to be.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
To a guy, Kevin Wepper, and his dad was the chairman of my mom's department way back
really?
in the day. Yeah.
Oh,
Portland is so creepy if
Yeah.
you've been here.
So when I sold cars for Thomas and Honda to pay for college and grad school, I did that in the summer times. I trained Kevin.
You did.
Yeah.
You did a good job, because I think he owns like a Lexus dealership in California.
Yeah, he went to Vegas and owned something. Yeah, he's like big time car guy now. Yeah, I didn't do anything. I just I trained him, but yeah, those were funny times.
I'll bet you would be a better car salesman now than you were then, because I think at that point you were still a little bit conflicted, and I think you weren't willing to really go all in for the hard sell. But I could see you that
I
now.
was the worst. I was the worst, but I did work very, very hard, and I sold a lot of cars, but I also made less per car than anybody else in the
But
dealership.
there were numbers that you hit too. Like, right, if you hit 10 cars, that was
15. At
okay.
15, you got like $1,000 or $2,000 as a bonus, and then it went up. And one month I sold 25 cars. This is a long time ago, right? And I think I made like a $5,000 bonus or $5,500, and that was just unbelievable.
Right.
Right? I mean, that was like 90 something. So it's like
You couldn't have done that for long, though.
I
Could
did
you?
it for 5 different summers.
Yeah.
I mean, it was show up, do that, and yeah, it was not. It's a demanding job.
What did you get? What did you take away from those interactions? I mean, you're forced into having kind of an uncomfortable conversation, right?
Yeah. Now, they didn't want to hire me because when I was, at Reed, I started after my senior year, and I was trying to save up money to go overseas.
Right.
And so, so I had, long hair, and I got there, and they said, you're going to have to cut it if you want to work here. And so I kind of cut it, and then I tried to use gel to hold it down.
Not that mop.
And but when I would run around, then it would kind of start pooping. It would break through, and then it would just be
The shell of gel.
yeah, it
Okay.
would break through, and then it would just be this kind of like rigid, curly mushroom kind of on my head. But I still remember. I think there are a lot of good lessons. One is that it was the first time that I engaged with and worked every day with convicts and other people, because because that's what the industry is made of. You can sell, anybody can sell a car,
Right.
and so a lot of ex-cons and a lot of kind of knuckleheads, but also a lot of interesting people, a lot of immigrant. You just go to a car dealership today and you can see the diverse community that's selling cars, because you really just have to work hard. And so I did enjoy the fact that at the beginning they looked at me as like a hippie, but over time I kind of gained the respect.
You won people over.
Just by hard work, because
Yeah.
I worked very hard, and eventually they just, I kind of became part of the guys. So that was nice to kind of feel like, yeah, validating hard work, you can kind of get through it. But the selling, it was mostly a very depressing study of the kind of the human psychology relative to buying. And when you first got there, people would tell you things, and you just would hear them, and it would just sound so yucky.
Things as far as techniques to use on customers.
Yeah. And,
Like?
well, some of them are so on PC now these days. But they would, the old sales guys would break it down by like ethnicity, how to behave with different
Jesus.
ethnicities, and then especially with women, right?
Right.
And so, and I just found that repulsive. And then what's discouraging though is some of those stereotypes. Every now and then some would ring true, and you'd be like, God damn it!
Darn it! I don't want that to be.
I don't want that to be that way. And so I did the opposite. I never tried to. I shared too much with the client.
Right, like
and
this is what I need, or this is how low we can go.
Yeah, just like this is where the deal is, right? And they wouldn't believe me because they think they're used to other
This is still like the paper across the table time, right? Like,
yes.
No. Let me
I had to
get
go
my
to the
manager.
closer, so I was trying to negotiate both ends of the deal, and just like my closer's going to come out and tell you blah, but we can end up being here,
right?
And over time, I was trying to be sincere about it, and then the closer would come in and just be like, whack them, and they'd look at me like, you kind of lied to me or misled me, and then you just get tougher and tougher and just be like, look, believe me or don't believe me, this is where this deal is going to go.
Right.
This is the invoice on the car, so you can say and do as much as you want, but I'm telling you the truth.
Right.
But what was hard for me is that I hadn't ever been in a profession where 99% of the clients when they come in are programmed not to believe you, right? And I would say something and they'd be like, yeah, but like you're saying invoice is actually that, and I'm like, yes.
Right.
This Accord, we sold Hondas and Subarus, this car has an invoice of this, and they just wouldn't believe you, and you go through these torturous things, right? And
but this is akin to like trying to get rid of tipping. There is deeply ingrained in the American psyche the idea that that's what you do, and also that car salesmen are shysters, and I mean, less and less, I think, as the transparency comes through the internet and the ability for people to be like, no, I know
right.
what this is. Less and less that is the case. But what the hell?
Oh man, it was a kooky experience, and what was really depressing is sometimes I just I'd be depressed, and I wouldn't be as nice to people,
right?
And because I'm just beat up, and almost every time where I was like tougher on people, I made way more money,
right?
Like they paid more money for the car because either I just acted like I was just tired. I'm just like, look, take it or leave it, man.
Yeah.
I just don't give a shit about. It's just like, do you want it or not?
Oh man.
Right, and because you'd be tired of getting beat up.
Well.
And they'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do this, and I'd be like,
what? Really?
All right. And then the closer would come out and get a little bit more money out of them, and then those clients, the clients that disliked me the most were the ones that paid the least money.
Yeah.
This is absolutely the case. And the clients that like high-five me and handshakes and referrals always paid the most.
And what a shame that A, we're wired like that, and B, that industry is set up to kind of reward deceit.
Yeah. But it is an industry that terrifies people. My wife is really wanting to get, now that we have this dog that's going to turn into a small horse. He's already 25 pounds, by the way.
From an original weight of?
I don't know. He's 9 weeks old.
Did we talk about Michter on the show? Your new Saint Bernard puppy,
yeah, puppy.
That your wife plays smooth puppy jazz for?
Yes. Yeah, because he didn't sleep the first night. He just howled.
Mm-hmm.
And then she did some research, and we now play. It's really puppy elevator music.
Okay, like Kenny G.
Yeah, but just kind of like not Kenny G, like current hip songs that are actually played on the piano. But kind of like with a very, I would say you remove all the soul from the song,
sure,
and make it sound like it's being played by a computer, and that's what it is.
That's what you got.
And so anyway, she wants to get a bigger car to be able to fit the dog, and she so hates the idea of going in and negotiating and going through it that she will have, just because she doesn't want to deal with it, will pay a lot more money. Most people will, And that always drove me crazy, having worked in the dealership for so long. And so
what a terrible reward that in fleecing these people, you're delighting them.
Yeah.
What a horrible lesson to sell.
Yeah, and I still I go in knowing that it's going to be a fight.
But you kind of look forward to it, I imagine.
Yeah, I do. And the first thing I make sure that we just talk through is, like how I worked at, because there's always stories, all these guys, the senior guys all are this network of people that have been in it forever. So I make sure I talk about, the 5 years, even though it was 5 summers that I worked for Thomason. And so just to try to announce.
Right. I know the tricks.
Yeah.
But they're probably like, listen, old man, it's gotten a lot faster.
It has changed a lot, but not that much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still the strongest negotiation is always the walk. You just go in and you just say, this is where I'm at.
Kia Telluride.
Can you do it?
That's what I'm
or
talking
not?
about.
And then just, you get up and leave, and then always somebody runs back
Come after
out.
you.
And so you just have to be okay with it. But, the leases that we've gotten, we've started the current car that I'm driving. They started us at $600 a month on a lease, and I ended up, I think, $417.
Right.
And they just end up having to do it, right? It's always, that industry always sell now. Never let a dollar go out the door. Now, with the car shortage, it's different. Right? Because right now you're just paying full MSRP, full markup, like these delivery charges or all this other baloney that they have. Because the manufacturer delivers the car to the dealership, right? Like these delivery fees. But, so right now it's different because you do just pay top dollar because there aren't any cars. But in the normal world, the mandate always with dealerships is close the deal now.
Right.
And so, and how often do you do this?
That's a little Easter egg. I mean, we're dropping knowledge right here.
Well, it's like that. That's the mandate. And
so what Kurt says to you, prospective car buyers, is make your deal and get the hell up and go. You got to be ready. You got to be ready to walk.
Yeah. Or an even easier thing is, back in the day, there used to be something called fleet sales.
Right.
Now, fleet sales are what bigger companies used, but they're also the only person in the old dealerships that could actually quote you a price, send you the invoice, tell you how much over the invoice they have to be by dealership guidance, get you the car, have it cleaned, ready. You would fax in your credit app. They would get you approved, tell you what the financing was. You'd come in, sign the papers, and leave.
Walk. That sounds lovely.
Right. That's what everybody, and you have everything in front of you. And they'll tell you if there's back and dealer money, because a lot of times Ford will actually give the dealership extra money to move cars so they can lower prices. They'll tell you all the programs.
A real peek behind the curtain. I love it.
And so now those guys are called internet sales. So when and often, I just help Aaron Barnett get a car, and you just call the dealership and you ask for internet sales.
Right.
And they just put you through, and I just say, hey, I have a company. You can lie and say whatever you want. My partners were looking to buy a car.
You can't lie, prospective car buyers. Go ahead.
But you make it. You can kind of exaggerate.
Sure.
And just so I helped Aaron get a car, and they sent us the price and where it was on invoice. We sent in his credit app. They secured financing for him. Everything was done. Then he went in, got the car, and left. And we knew the deal he was getting, so I could feel at peace with it. Most people, if you go in and it's a $30,000 car, if you pay an extra $3,000 on your payment, it's not moving the needle that much.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, people don't feel that bad. But that still irks me, this idea of spending $3,000 more on a car than you need to.
Yeah.
That hurts my cheapskate soul.
Especially haven't seen it. I know. Well, if you see a Dijon mustard colored PT Cruiser out there, listeners, know that Aaron Barnett is rolling with the help of Kurt Huffman in that.
He does not have a PT Cruiser.
But it's probably Dijon colored.
No, it's not. It's a white.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it's a white car. It's very safe. He's delighted with it.
Well, he's daddy, likes safety.
Airbags. He has 2 delightful little kids. So
I always think of that scene in Fast Times when Judge Reinhold, who had a bunch of jobs in Fast Time, as you recall, is selling speakers.
Yes.
And the guy comes in. He's like, "Oh, I gotta have these speakers," and they're 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
And this is back when we had cords.
Yeah.
And speakers that you had to move around. And he's like upselling the guy on the speakers, and then he sees the guy has a pregnant wife. He's like, look, man, these speakers over here are 4 times less expensive, half the size.
Right. Great sound.
Great sound. You know, he looks like you got a kid on the way, but he'd already done such a good job. The guy's like, no, I gotta have the monsters.
Yeah,
so,
and then he goes, and these things are so big you can bury yourself in them, right? You can be your coffin.
I don't have that recall, but I believe it.
Yeah.
Still one of my touchdowns.
Man, oh man, I saw Judd speak at a restaurant conference, and it was one of those celebrity moments. So first of all, I'm a huge fan, and then think of Beverly Hills Cop, right? And this guy was like,
yeah,
the shit.
Yeah.
And it was the most meandering, aimless, pathetic talk.
Whoa.
And
here come the tweets.
And it was just like, oh boy, you know,
That's
you
too
just
bad.
felt, yeah, and he just couldn't tell. I mean, he definitely was on some cocktail of
Cocktails.
of some kind of medication, because it was just not. It just, everybody was just kind of, you know, open mouth, like, what?
And he was there just by virtue of being a celebrity, or did he have some interest in restaurants?
Yeah, any of these celebrities that come to are somehow tangentially associated with restaurants. Like Bill Murray, his son Homer has a restaurant in Brooklyn, and so Bill has come to the conferences. You know, Joe Montana.
Bill Murray, meeting Bill Murray with you, still one of my highlights.
Oh yeah.
That was so exciting.
Well,
Eating
he's a
dinner with
national
him.
icon, and he is actually a delightful guy. And we ate dinner with him after he did his show here in Portland, and then I ate dinner with him in Washington D.C. at another one of these conferences, and just as I sit down, you know, he introduces himself. And we start talking, and it's going very well. He's just funny, and somehow
Bill fucking Murray.
Yeah, and it's going well. So I've even said things that have him laughing, which of course makes you feel like, hold on, what's going on? And just as like he's laughing, my wife, with my infant daughter, FaceTime me. And I'm like, Bill, I'm sorry to ask this, but could you answer this for me? And he's like, of course. And he grabs the phone, and Heather appears on the screen with Cora, who's maybe 1 at the time, and he goes, hi, I'm Bill Murray. And my wife is like,
And
he goes, here's your husband, and passes over, and Heather's like, what the fuck?
did Cora have the earmuffs on, or? Nope.
It's just one of these things where, you know, it just was,
That's pretty,
but that was cool
unsettling,
of him, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty
very.
cool of him. So, you know, he took 10 seconds out of his day, and then he's just funny. But so we have
Anyway,
a great,
Judge Reinhold somehow.
but I want to
affiliated with
one more Bill
restaurants.
Murray, because
Okay,
this is
okay.
just like a guy like that everybody wants to talk to all the time has developed these kind of one-liners that you'd imagine for all social settings. So the next day he's on a panel, and I meet with him afterwards, and you know, to go, I can't remember what it was, but I go up after, and he comes over to me and goes, hey, remember me? And I was like, yes, Bill, I remember you. And then, but that's just kind of his shtick, you
Right.
know, and he, because he'd made fun of me while he was talking about how he had dinner the previous night with a guy who started talking about tip credit. And because he asked me about tip credit, and he goes, and basically implied that it was the most boring dinner he'd ever had in his life. And so, very funny. But in any case, Judge Reinhold, holy mackerel, that guy was just a mess. And it was a bummer. Whereas Terry Crews, who also spoke,
I know you're a big fan.
oh my God, Terry Crews, man! I mean, he's an inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, he just
Pex McGillicuddy.
oh yeah, and it's like he's so hyped up that even like the restaurant crowd, which is a pretty amped up, caffeinated crowd, they were a little bit taken aback.
Sure.
And he got up there and just full on the dancing pecs and this and that, and but you know, he's great. And he, you know, I quote him all the time because I really respect him and his kind of approach to showing up.
Bring your A game.
Yeah, bring your A game. It resonated with me
I
because
know
I
that's
often
your thing. Work
I
hard
often-
and bring your A game. Kurt
Yeah.
Huffman in a nutshell.
Right, but I often in the past, and I think we're, in this city also, we're kind of encouraged not to be like too boisterous or too whatever. So fine, like in your day-to-day life, do that. But when you are brought to the stage to do something, or when you're doing a job to do something, don't bring like a lackluster,
Right.
ho-hum, too cool to be your attitude. Like, bring it.
History will judge Reinhold you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You'd have to break that up for me to even understand.
History will judge you, right?
Right.
History will judge you. But I said judge Reinhold because he did a terrible job.
Reinhold you. Got it.
This, I think, is a good place to end since we talked at the beginning about language and how, sometimes that maybe I make things a little too complicated.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you say things that it takes me a while to kind of catch up.
Right. That's also true.
Yeah. So that's either me being not smart enough or me not quite knowing where you're going with
Yeah,
things.
I don't know if anybody follows that, but I do want to say that it's probably a good way to remind ourselves that when we think we know something, we think we're about to tell you how to change your food, we should probably just be quiet.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, or, I don't know.
We're coming for you, Portland chefs.
Yeah, I just...
Also, don't tell us when you're leaving social media. How about that? Just leave. Just go social media.
Oh.
Don't say you're going.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Don't say you're going, right? Just go.
Yeah, you know my feelings about that person.
Oh, connections. We're not going down that road because we're going to keep it fresh and light, and we're going to keep Portland happy and jolly. And please join us again next week. And we've got 40 minutes to spare with your hosts of the hotline, me, Leather Stores, and of course, always,
Kurt Huffman.
we're out.